All right, wow, we're going way beyond the whole, beauty in the emperor story.
Yeah.
To see how she's connected to, like, power struggles and politics, and
Mm.
even some, like, international intrigue. You ready to uncover some, like, really surprising facts?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's crazy how Yang Guifei's story
It's incredible.
still, like, captures the imagination even after all these centuries.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we always hear about how captivating she was, her beauty,
Right.
but you found sources that suggest she was way more complex
Yeah.
than
Oh.
just that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's not just historians. You even sent some sources about how the Japanese have woven her into their own legends.
Yeah, it's
There,
fascinating.
there are theories about her escaping to Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and there are even people who claim to be her descendants. I mean, talk about a mystery that spans cultures and centuries, right?
Really is.
But, okay, before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Okay.
let's start with what we know,
Yeah.
or at least what we think we know,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
About her origins.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, we tend to think of history as this, like, fixed thing,
Right.
but even basic facts,
Yeah.
like where someone was born,
Mm. Yeah.
could
Exactly.
be surprisingly hard to pin down.
Very true.
The sources you sent mention Yongle
Right.
in Shaanxi province as, like, her ancestral home,
Yeah.
but where she was actually born is still debated.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate about that.
And that's before we even get into that steal.
Oh, yeah.
That claims she was born in Puning County, in Rongzhou,
Uh-huh.
which is a total forgery, right?
It's a classic case. Yeah. Classic case of historical forgery.
It's like something out of a modern day,
Yeah.
like, bidding war,
Yeah. Yeah.
for celebrity hometowns. Turns out, even back in the Qing Dynasty, people were trying to claim famous figures as their own.
That's right.
And this steal,
Yeah.
it shows up in this collection called The Complete Prose of the Tang Dynasty.
Right.
But despite the name, it was actually put together centuries later.
Centuries later. Yeah.
And it's full of errors.
Mhm.
Like, it gives Emperor Xuanzong a title he wouldn't have had at that time.
Exactly.
Like, come on, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder how many other, like, historical facts
Yeah.
are just, like, elaborate fabrications,
Right. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's like a historical game of telephone,
Yeah.
where the stories get
Totally.
embellished and the facts get twisted over time. It really makes you realize how important it is to, like,
Yeah.
be skeptical of
Yeah.
sources and their potential biases,
Absolutely.
And, speaking of things that might not be what they seem,
Yeah.
you also pointed out some questions about the name Yang Yuan itself.
Yes. That name comes from a collection called Miscellaneous Records of Emperor Minghuang,
Well,
which is, it's kind of like a historical gossip column,
oh, wow.
with some entries more reliable than others.
Right.
So even the name we use for her has like a degree of uncertainty to it. Adds another layer of intrigue to her story, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's before we even get to her life in the palace,
Right.
which, according to what you said,
Yeah.
goes way beyond just a simple love story.
Defo.
To really understand Yang Guifei,
Uh-huh.
we have to understand the political landscape she entered,
Yes.
especially Emperor Xuanzong,
Right.
and his really complex relationship with powerful women.
Yeah. That's crucial.
His attraction to Yang Guifei wasn't just about beauty.
Oh, no.
It was, like, deeply intertwined with his anxieties about powerful women,
Uh-huh.
which stemmed from a traumatic childhood experience.
Yeah, a really traumatic experience.
Right. The sources you sent mentioned his mother's execution.
Yeah.
Under Empress Wu's.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those who don't know,
Right.
Empress Wu was an incredible figure.
Yeah.
The only woman to ever rule China in her own right.
Amazing.
But her rise to power was ruthless.
It was.
And it clearly left a mark on the young Xuanzong,
Oh,
who
definitely.
witnessed his own mother,
Uh-huh.
Lady Du, fall victim to all that court intrigue.
Wow, yeah.
Imagine the impact of that experience
Oh, I know.
on him as a kid.
Yeah.
It's no wonder he grew up kind of wary of ambitious women.
Yeah, it makes sense.
This fear shaped his relationships throughout his whole reign,
Mm-hmm.
from his first wife, Empress Wei,
Right.
to the ambitious Princess Taiping,
Uh-huh.
and even later on, consort Wu Husei.
Yeah.
It seems like he was constantly trying to, like, balance
Yeah.
this desire for companionship
Mm-hmm.
with this deep-seated fear of being controlled or overshadowed.
Right. That's really interesting.
But wouldn't a powerful woman,
Yeah.
also be an asset in that kind of, like, turbulent court?
Yeah, you'd think so.
Someone to share the burdens of leadership with.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Good question.
Maybe he saw any kind of female ambition
Maybe.
as a direct threat.
Mm-hmm.
like a reminder of his mother's tragic fate.
Yeah, that's possible.
And this fear ultimately led him to never appoint another empress.
Right.
After his wife, Empress Wang, was deposed.
Yeah.
Which you can imagine
Oh.
created a huge power vacuum.
It did, yeah.
In the imperial harem.
Absolutely.
And that is where Yang Guifei enters the picture.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we've got this powerful emperor
Right.
with a serious fear of powerful women,
Yeah.
an empty empress position,
Mm-hmm.
and a whole bunch of ambitious consorts,
I know.
all vying for influence.
Mm-hmm.
And into this, like, volatile mix
Yeah.
walks Yang Guifei.
Wow, talk about a recipe for drama.
I know, right? I'm already sensing some serious drama here.
Yeah.
But before we get into her rise,
Okay.
you mentioned consort Wu Huifei specifically.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like her ambitions played a key role
He did, yeah.
in paving the way for Yang Guifei.
Absolutely.
Consort Wu Huifei was like everything Xuanzong feared in a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, talented,
Mm-hmm.
but most importantly, ambitious.
Yes, very ambitious.
She saw that empty empress position and thought,
I bet she did.
why not me?
Yeah.
Hold on, wait.
Yeah.
So before we even meet Yang Guifei, we have another powerful woman
We do.
aiming for the top spot.
That's right.
Oh, this is getting good.
Yeah.
I need to hear more about this consort Wu
Okay.
and how she factored into Yang Guifei's entry into the palace.
Right.
But I guess we'll have to save that
I think so.
for the next part of our deep dive.
All right.
Okay, so last time we left off with consort Wu Huifei.
Right.
Beautiful, talented, ambitious.
Mm.
She saw the empress position was just sitting there,
Yeah.
and she really wanted it.
Oh, she did.
But Emperor Xuanzong,
Yeah.
with all those past experiences, those anxieties...
Right. He wasn't about to give that much power to any woman.
Of course.
So what happened?
Right.
Did they have some kind of like big confrontation?
It was more like a strategic move on Xuanzong's part.
Good.
Don't forget, this guy was a master at the political game.
Right.
He knew the court officials.
Yeah.
They were already, like, kind of nervous about another woman named Wu getting too much power.
Oh, yeah. After Empress Wuization.
Exactly.
They've seen that before.
Yeah, so he kind of used their anxieties to his advantage.
Oh, it's smart. So he didn't like directly refuse Consort Wu. He sort of nudged the court officials to do it for him.
Exactly. He presented the idea of making consort Wu empress to his ministers, knowing they'd object.
And they did.
Oh, they definitely did.
What'd they say?
They argued that, elevating consort Wu, it would mess up the whole balance of power.
Okay.
And potentially jeopardize the succession of the current crown prince. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the court was still recovering from Empress Wuizishan's rule.
Right.
I bet they were terrified of another woman taking charge.
Yeah.
Even if it was just through marriage to the emperor.
Exactly.
So what did consort Wu do when she found out she wasn't going to be empress?
She was not happy.
Yeah, I bet she wasn't.
No, but this actually created the perfect opening for Yang Guifei to enter the scene.
Oh, good.
While Consort Wu was busy trying to get that empress title,
Yeah.
Yang Guifei, who was initially a consort for Xuanzong's son,
Right.
caught the emperor's eye.
Wow. So while consort Wu was playing the political game, Yang Guifei was making her move.
In a way, yeah.
It's amazing how all these power dynamics were playing out.
It is.
But what was it about Yang Guifei that got Xuanzong's attention?
Right.
Was it just her legendary beauty?
Well, beauty was definitely a factor.
Okay.
But, Xuanzong wanted more than just a pretty face.
Right.
He wanted someone who wouldn't threaten his power.
Yeah.
Someone who could, give him artistic and emotional satisfaction,
Uh-huh.
but wouldn't stir up any political trouble.
I'm curious, do the sources say anything about how she presented herself?
That's a good question.
Was she playing into this harmless beauty role?
Right.
Or was there something more going on?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, the sources aren't that detailed on those specifics.
Okay.
You have to remember, a lot of what was written about Yang Guifei, it was after her death.
Right.
Influenced by, politics and whether people wanted to make her look good or bad.
Yeah.
What we do know is that she was known for her grace and her skill in music and dance and just her ability to charm everyone around her.
So she had this unique blend of artistry and charisma.
Definitely.
But was she really just a passive figure?
Right.
Content with being the emperor's favorite?
Uh-huh.
Or was she more more cunning,
Yeah.
more ambitious than the stories make her out to be?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one that historians are still arguing about today.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Some people think she was a master manipulator,
Mm.
skillfully using her position to gain influence behind the scenes,
Wow.
while others think she was more of a pawn,
Okay.
caught in the middle of Xuanzong's paranoia
Right.
and all the court machinations.
So even though she wasn't officially empress,
Yeah.
she still might have had a lot of power.
She might have, yeah.
That raises an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
If Xuanzong was so scared of powerful women,
Right.
what made him fall for Yang Guifei in the first place?
Yeah.
What was it about her that made her different
That's a great question.
from all the other women in his life?
Maybe he saw in her what he couldn't find in those more overtly ambitious women at court.
Well.
Maybe her artistic talents, her captivating presence, they offered him a kind of escape
Escaped from what?
from the pressures of ruling.
Oh, I see.
Or maybe, despite his fears, he was drawn to her intelligence,
Uh-huh.
her wit, qualities that, in a different context, he might have really admired.
So it's like he was walking this tightrope
Yeah.
between wanting a connection
Mm-hmm.
and being terrified of being controlled.
That's a good way to put it.
And Yang Guifei, at least for a while,
Yeah.
seemed like a safe haven for him.
It seems that way.
But the Tang Dynasty,
Right.
wasn't exactly known for its stability.
That's true.
And this peace wasn't going to last forever.
No.
Now, you sent some stuff about the An Lushan Rebellion,
Yes.
which was a huge deal in Tang history.
It was.
And it would completely change Yang Guifei's fate.
Yes. The An Lushan Rebellion.
So how did this rebellion affect her story?
Wow.
And how did the events at Mawei Slope, which you mentioned, come into play?
Right.
Tell me everything. So the An Lushan Rebellion, right?
Yes.
For those who might not know this part of Tang history, it was basically a massive uprising
It was.
led by this powerful general named An Lushan, who had totally gained Emperor Xuanzong's trust. But secretly, he had ambitions to take over.
Oh, yeah. He wanted all the power for himself.
It lasted for 8 years
A long time.
and really,
Yeah.
shook the Tang Dynasty to its core.
It did.
It's like the beginning of its decline.
It's often said that the Tang Dynasty, during Xuanzong's reign,
All right.
was at its peak.
Really?
Yeah, like a golden age,
Uh-huh.
art and culture, prosperity.
Wow.
But as we saw with Xuanzong's whole thing with powerful women, there were cracks beneath the surface. Things weren't as perfect as they seemed.
Right. And An Lushan, this ambitious general,
Yeah,
he totally took advantage of those cracks.
he did.
Led to this huge rebellion.
Exactly.
But let's get back to Yang Guifei.
Okay.
So how did this major upheaval impact her story?
Well, a lot of historical accounts kind of make Yang Guifei the scapegoat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they blame her for distracting the emperor with her beauty
Uh-huh.
and say that made the empire weaker. Think about that famous poem, The Song of Everlasting Sorrow.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
It romanticizes their love story,
Right.
but it also kind of subtly suggests that Yang Guifei's charms were the reason the emperor neglected his duties.
Yeah. It's like those lines about powder and paint fading in the 6 palaces
Right.
while the emperor's lost in love, not paying attention to what's going on.
Exactly.
It's a powerful image, but it's interesting
It is.
how we just accept this idea of the beautiful woman
Yeah.
as a distraction,
Uh-huh.
the downfall of a powerful man.
It makes you wonder if that whole narrative served a political purpose,
Like to shift the blame away from the emperor.
Maybe. It's a pattern we see a lot in history, don't we?
Yeah, totally.
The woman is the temptress, the source of weakness.
Right.
And the man's failures, they're all her fault.
Exactly. But from the sources you sent,
Yeah.
it seems like blaming Yang Guifei for a whole rebellion is a bit much, right?
It is, yeah.
There must have been other things going on.
Oh, definitely.
Other weaknesses that An Lushan used to his advantage.
Absolutely. An Lushan's rebellion, it was fueled by a bunch of things, like political corruption, economic problems,
Yeah.
and, of course, his own ambition
Right.
boiling over. To reduce it all down to a love story doesn't really do justice to how complicated it all was.
No, it doesn't.
Yang Guifei was just caught in the middle of it all.
Right. Like everyone else at court.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the incident at Mawei Slope.
Yes.
This is a big one in Yang Guifei's story, right?
It really is.
It's like the climax of some tragic play.
Yeah, it's a pivotal moment for sure, and a really heartbreaking one.
Okay, so tell me about it.
Well, An Lushan's forces, They were getting close to the capital.
Oh, no.
So Emperor Xuanzong, he fled.
He ran away.
He took his whole entourage,
Yeah.
including Yang Guifei.
Uh-huh.
But during this chaotic escape, the imperial guards, they started to panic.
I bet.
They were scared for their lives, and they wanted someone to blame.
Oh, wow.
They demanded that Yang Guifei be executed.
They blamed her for the whole rebellion.
They did.
That seems a little extreme, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, even if she had some influence over the emperor,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem fair to say she caused a whole military uprising.
It's definitely a case of misplaced blame.
Yeah.
But remember, when things are falling apart, people often look for someone to blame,
Right.
especially those in power.
And Yang Guifei, as the emperor's favorite,
Yeah.
was an easy target.
Unfortunately, she was.
So what happened?
Yeah.
Did Xuanzong try to protect her
He was really torn. The sources say he was deeply conflicted,
in a match?
caught between his love for Yang Guifei and needing to keep his guards happy to make sure he survived.
That's a horrible situation to be in.
It is.
So he had to choose, basically.
Yeah.
Did he sacrifice her to save himself?
Tragically, he did.
Wow.
It's a really sad moment in history. Faced with the threat of mutiny, Xuanzong agreed to Yang Guifei's death.
Oh, no.
She was strangled at Mawei Slope when she was only 38 years old.
What a tragic end to her story.
It is.
But, you know, we talked about those legends earlier,
Oh, right.
especially in Japan, that say she might have escaped.
Yeah.
It's like people couldn't accept that she died,
Yeah.
so they came up with stories where she lived on.
It shows how fascinating she was. Even centuries later, people are still drawn to her,
Yeah.
and they want to believe she might have survived.
So we've talked about a lot today.
We have.
The mystery around her birth and her name, her complicated relationship with Xuanzong, her tragic death during the rebellion.
It's a lot to take in.
What are some key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the biggest one is that history. Like, life is rarely simple.
Right.
Yang Guifei's story, it's full of nuances, complexities.
Yeah.
She was more than just a beautiful woman. She was trying to survive in a world of power and ambition and danger.
That's true.
I think her story also reminds us to question those romanticized narratives that we often hear about the past.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in
It is.
and to forget that real people were living these stories.
Exactly.
It's also a reminder that even people who seem incredibly powerful can be at the mercy of these bigger historical forces.
Absolutely. Yang Guifei's life, her death, they were shaped by the political events of her time.
Right.
She was both a participant and a victim of those forces.
It makes her story even more interesting
Good touch.
and relevant to us today.
Definitely gives us a lot to think about.
You know, maybe someday we'll do a whole deep dive
Oh, yeah.
on those Japanese legends,
That would be fun.
searching for clues about Yang Guifei's escape.
Like a historical treasure hunt.
That would be awesome.
would.
But for now, we'll leave you all to ponder
Yeah.
the mysteries and complexities of Yang Guifei's life and legacy.
A life well lived.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating deep dive
It was my pleasure.
into the world of Yang Guifei. Well, next time.
See you then.